right, good afternoon, everyone. I'll just open with a quick statement, and then we'll open up to questions right away for myself and MLA Stone. So as you saw today in this government and finance minister's update of the province, is that this NDP government is not taking any accountability whatsoever for their disastrous 2 years of being in government. They are blaming everyone but themselves. No accountability, and they are missing every single projection that they have laid out, and not by a little bit, by a lot. They have no plan to balance the budget other than continually saying they're going to balance the budget, but the proof is in the numbers and the facts. And they clearly show that this NDP government is driving this province into the ground and further. They've increased taxes on Manitoba families in the hundreds of millions of dollars, all the while destroying Manitoba's economy. We are ranked dead last in GDP when it comes across Canada, and next year we're forecasted to be even worse. This is a disaster under the NDP. Manitoba needs to have a plan, needs to have real projections, and we need to get out of this disastrous NDP government that is driving this province to disaster. On that, I'll open up for questions. I'm sure you have plenty.
Well, deficits are nonpartisan, as we've seen over the last 20 years, especially when hydro is losing a lot of money. And it's hundreds of millions this year because of drought. So between that and the forest fires, is it really government policy doing anything here, or is it just natural disasters and near-record drought?
Well, there's one thing to be said about a deficit or missing your projections. There's another thing to be missing it by $1.6 billion. There's another thing to be said of having the largest federal transfer payments in the history of this province and still missing your projections. This government has done nothing to combat either of those. They're not growing our economy, they're not creating jobs, they're out of control spending and taxation on Manitobans. They took over $400 million out of hardworking, middle-class Manitobans, and they're still running billions of dollars in deficit. That is a nonpartisan thing, but the NDP is in power right now, and they're not offering any solutions for Manitobans on how to get out of that.
Okay, say you're magically in control of the budget then next year. How would you deal with the combined effects of the forest fires and the reduced hydro revenue due to drought?
Well, when it comes to the forest fires, you saw that the NDP cut $50 million in the emergency response. You saw that the NDP denied, which was in the transitional government, was a request, a report, a recommendation for them to look into forest fires and mechanisms to protect that and combat that. So that is one thing aside. What we would do is we would grow our economy like we've talked about. We would remove the red tape and the artificial barriers that have been put up by layers upon layers of this government, by bureaucracy, by slow moving, by the Premier saying one thing and doing something very different. We have to grow our economy here in Manitoba. Premier says he wants to do pipelines, and when he has the chance to vote in favor of an MOU that Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Ontario have signed on to, that will grow our economy, he says no. The facts and the actions of this NDP government and Premier do not line up with his words. So what we would do is we'd grow our economy. Number two is we would reverse the decision of their education property taxes that has cost Manitobans hundreds of millions of dollars. Those are things that are making life less affordable for Manitobans who are struggling at Christmas time and the holiday season to put food on their table. Also, this gas tax that the NDP government wants to talk about is a savings of 75 cents a tank when you go to the gas station. That is not making life more affordable for Manitobans. We need real action, we need a real plan, neither of which we've seen from this NDP government.
So you say a PC government would restore the 50% education property tax rebate?
I'm saying that a PC government would make life more affordable for Manitobans. We would look at, going back to what we were doing prior to this NDP government, and that would be putting money back in the pockets of Manitobans, not taking $400 million out of them. The indexation of the tax bracket, which the NDP removed as well, has cost Manitobans another $82 million. So they're taking money out of Manitobans' back pockets. They have out-of-control spending on one hand, which has killed our economic horse that the Premier wants to talk about. So they're taking money from Manitobans and they're irresponsibly spending it on programs, and our economy and our province is going further and further into debt.
Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding you. So you're saying the deficit's bad, but
Yep.
you want to add to the deficit by taking away some of the revenue that they were...
Nope, I wanna,
You
sure.
realize if you put it back at 50-50, that means less revenue. So
Less revenue if you're not going to grow the economy. Less revenue if you're not going to actually do anything
you
to.
grow the economy in the short term. Pipelines, these things,
Yep.
they take decades.
Yep.
Mr. Khan.
Yep.
How would you grow the economy immediately in one budget year to make
Yep.
the 800 million or so from the forest fires and the hydro?
Yeah, remove the barriers and the artificial hurdles. Speed up processes, speed up applications, permits, get businesses, make it a business-friendly environment for business to want to come and invest in Manitoba, to grow, to create jobs, putting money back in the pockets of Manitobans when they are experiencing an affordability crisis will generate money spent in Manitoba. These are things you can do. Let's look at the tariffs, for example, if you want to talk about real tangible changes we can do right now. Premier Scott Moe, when the tariffs were announced, went overseas and signed $1 billion of agreements and MOUs for canola exports. What has Wab Canoe done? Nothing, other than hold his hand out to Ottawa and say, give us more money, which now Ottawa is doing, and yet we're still running at a double what they projected for the deficit to be.
Did you know it was the PC government under Pallister that cut the trade offices in Asia?
Yeah, I wasn't here when that decision was made. I'm here now as leader. I'm telling you that under us it would be a very different plan. We would grow our economy. We would help families by making life more affordable, putting more money in your back pockets while controlling our spending. The other thing to point out, also very interesting, is with this deficit right now and the debt that's accumulated in just 2 years under this NDP, which is about $4 billion projected to be, what is the Premier going to do to balance the books? The only thing he can do is he's going to raise taxes, just like he did when he was with Greg Sillinger. The difference now is the taxes that they've raised have actually resulted in larger tax increase than the 1% PST increase. The 1% PST increase under Sillinger was not as much as this education property tax under the NDP government now, and he'll continue to do it.
You mentioned the fuel tax a little while ago, adding up to 75 cents on an average tank. Would you restore the fuel tax to where it was as part of the plan to balance the budget?
Well, I mean, it's hard to make those decisions when you're not in government. We don't have full access to the financials. We don't know what it's actually costing and what the offset is. What I would say is we are committed to growing our economy in Manitoba. We are committed to supporting families and actually making life more affordable. Not saying you're doing it, but not doing anything to back up your actions. The gas tax savings is 75 cents for a 50-liter tank. 75 cents, as MLA Stone has referred to many times, is not enough to buy a can of soup. That is now making life more affordable for Manitobans. The things that the Premier promised and campaigned on are blowing up in his face. Healthcare is worse, crime is higher than it's ever been, and our economy is dead last in Canada, and we have another $1 billion deficit plus under this NDP government. What they have done is they've done a very good job of normalizing a $1 billion deficit, saying that, oh, it's just $1 billion, and rationalizing that by saying, we're giving Manitobans an extra $100 on their education property taxes. It's shameful, and the Manitobans demand more and better from the Premier and Finance Minister. On that, I'll pass it to MLA Stone, since she's the finance critic. I'm sure she has some comments she wants to add in as well on this NDP government.
Yeah, thanks. The leader basically has said everything that needs to be said. I just want to make a couple quick comments over the past couple of years. As the leader mentioned, this NDP government has consistently missed its budget projections. Every single quarter, we're seeing them be missed by not a little bit, by a significant margin. So last year when we came out, and I spoke to many of you after budget, and specifically said that their projections were too rosy for going into two different trade wars as a province and as a country. And now we're seeing those too rosy of projections come to light. But with the influx of federal transfer payments over the past 2 years, last year was a 25% increase from the year before. It was around 337 million. This year we're seeing 355 million. There is no reason why this NDP government cannot balance the books. As the leader had mentioned, this is about accountability. They're blaming everyone but themselves. They're the ones that are increasing spending. They're the ones that are not properly budgeting our province and our books, and so they're the ones to blame. And I think that that's a really important distinction to make.
Coming into school budget season, the announcement in the new year, I know you've sat on the spot, spoken a lot about the double-digit tax increases
Yep.
this year, the 400 million number. What is your recommendation? What do you want to see the NDP government do with this next round of school funding and with the education tax status quo?
Yeah, so what we saw last year was a very sloppy planning as it related to education property taxes and a very sloppy rollout. They removed the 50% rebate without taking into consideration a general assessment that happens every 2 years as a province. They removed the 2% cap on school divisions, which saw school divisions increase to unprecedented double-digit historic levels. And they replaced it with a flat credit that does not account for increasing property values. So this is going to be a problem as we continue to go forward. Property values continue to increase. School divisions will continue to increase their rates. So unless the NDP government steps in and makes some hard but difficult decisions to reverse some of those changes, then this is going to be continue to be a challenge for Manitoba homeowners and Manitoba property owners. We've also seen, the removal of the rebate for secondary properties as well, whether that be cottage owners, businesses, individuals that own farmland in a different municipality that's not their primary homestead. All of these costs are more money that will be taken out of Manitobans' pockets. So as the leader mentioned, we'd like to see the decision for a flat credit reversed and the 50% tax credit restored for all homeowners across the province of Manitoba. Bartley, you had mentioned about spending into the economy. Well, when Manitobans have more money in their pockets, then they can spend into the economy. I think I said that last year after budget, and I'm going to say it again. But taking $400 million out of the pockets of Manitobans at a time of an affordability crisis is not the way to do it. So we'll be watching the school divisions very closely and what their projections are going to be for their own budgets, and then how the NDP government handles that moving forward.
Finance Minister spoke at length about municipalities being the ones who have been raising taxes. What are your thoughts on his remarks?
This was a decision that he made and that his NDP government made when it comes to education property tax. It was their decision to end the 50% rebate. He can't blame every other municipality and school divisions. The buck stops with him. He made that change in last year's budget. So he's the one that needs to take accountability for that and start providing the tax relief that Manitobans need. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the $82 million in income tax changes that were also made this year by removing the indexation of income taxes for Manitobans, thus bringing back bracket creep, which is just another way that this NDP government is removing money from the pockets of Manitobans during a cost of living crisis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What about blame game for Jeff?